Jaylen Brown is genuinely making a legitimate push for why he should be MVP. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling, your home for all things Boston sports. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, currently the host of this show, as well as the Locked On Red Sox podcast for the Locked On Podcast Network, which is a daily show. So if you want to hear me talk Boston Red Sox all day, every day, tune in to Locked On Red Sox on any podcast platform. Also, continue to subscribe to Boston Balling on any podcast platform as well from Monday through Thursday, Boston Sports Talk. And today's episode is all about the Celtics and the fact that they are in a really good spot right now. Much better spot than I think people would say they would be at this time going into the season. So currently they are still on the All-Star break. They return on Thursday on the West Coast. So brace yourselves for those 10 p.m. starts, guys. But they currently are second in the Eastern Conference with a record of 35-19, following the Pistons, who have a record of 40-13 and have been the best team in the East all season long. They've been a fun team to watch. A lot of emergence of young players on that Pistons squad this year. But the Celtics being right behind them is also really exciting. 5.5 games back. They likely won't finish atop the East unless they go on a big run. But even so, finishing second in the East is no shame. The Knicks are only a half game behind the Celtics right now, too. So that's something they're going to have to watch as the season progresses here, with the Cavs not being too far behind that. So the Eastern Conference standings are still very much pretty tight, but the Celtics are well on their way to make a run this season. And while Jayson Tatum coming back and returning is definitely a factor in that, and him coming back would increase their chances of making a deeper playoff run to the finals, that certainly is the biggest storyline as we look towards this later part of the season. But it cannot be ignored how good and dominant Jaylen Brown has been for this Celtics team this season. I mean, he truly has put the team on his back and has really been the guy who the Celtics have looked to rely on all season long. And we knew what Jaylen Brown was capable of because he won Finals MVP in 2024 when the Celtics won it all. And he was a guy that it was easy to root for because the combination of him and Jayson Tatum was pretty remarkable. But that's the key here, is the combination of him and Jayson Tatum. So we knew going into this season how well the two of them worked together. Then Tatum obviously went down with his injury and was expected to miss the entirety of the season. So the question then became, how is Jaylen going to perform without Jayson Tatum by his side? Because it's easy to say, wow, I'm so confident in a player, but you can be confident in a player when you've seen them with their partner in crime, and you can say, okay, you know, I really like what Jaylen Brown provides, because with that duo together, he has his role and Tatum has his role, and they complement each other really well. But when you're expected to step up and be the guy, that's when it really becomes a question of, okay, are they going to be able to do that? And to say he has done it effectively would truly be an understatement. I mean, the season that he is having is truly putting the team on his back, because going into the season, Joe Mazzulla being able to maximize the remaining talent on the roster was going to be a given. He's just a good coach and kind of knows what role to utilize guys in. But Tatum's absence, a lot of people thought would eliminate the Celtics from the tier of serious contenders. Clearly, Jaylen Brown missed that memo, because the 5-time All-Star isn't just the leader of a surprisingly good Celtics team, but he's a legitimate candidate for the NBA MVP award. Now, when I think about MVP, that stands for most valuable player. Who is the most valuable player on their team? You can make a case for Cade Cunningham because the Pistons are the top team in the East, and he is the heart of that team, and he's the biggest reason for their success and the biggest reason that has fueled them and propelled them to be the best team in the East this season. That's certainly really valuable. You can make a case for SGA because of where that OKC team is and the fact that they won the whole thing last year with him, and they're just as good this year, and they probably wouldn't be as good without him. So the word valuable to me doesn't always mean the best player in the league. It means who is the most valuable to their team at this time. And it's hard to look past Jaylen Brown right now because they are missing their best player. And with where he has gotten this team right now, it's hard to argue that he shouldn't very much be in that conversation and arguably shouldn't be a favorite for it. And this isn't to say that his teammates don't also deserve a ton of credit, because everybody on this team has stepped up into big roles. I mean, Derrick White deserves a ton of credit, Peyton Pritchard. I mean, you name it. Anthony Simons before the trade deadline, shout out to him, really played a big part in helping this team get to where they are. And to me, Cade is a big one that's been a factor. So guys have really stepped up on the Celtics team, and the list really can go on. But Jaylen Brown has been the heart of that. And to me, that's what the word valuable represents. A guy who provides the most value, and their team would not be where they are without him. And that certainly is the case here, because with Tatum down, if Jaylen Brown wasn't playing to the level that he is, the Celtics may be a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, but certainly would not be the second seeded team in the East right now. So he deserves all of the credit for that. He's averaging career highs in points, which 29.3, rebounds with 6.9, and assists with 4.7 per game. Despite logging the highest usage percentage of his career at 36.9, he is shooting better from the field at 48.3% and from three-point range at 34.8% than he did last season. He's one of the league's top drivers to the basket, and he's seen a jump in free throw attempts with 7.0 per game, and he is converting on those opportunities at the highest rate of his career, which is 77.5%. When he doesn't reach the rim, he's also keeping defenders on edge with one of the NBA's most effective pull-up jumpers. So there's a lot of things that Jaylen Brown is doing well this season that we haven't always necessarily seen from him over the course of his career. And that's certainly something that's really exciting. Also, you look at those offensive accolades and you think, okay, he's performing at the highest level of his career probably right now offensively, but his defense also shouldn't go unnoticed. The advanced numbers show that he often accepts the most difficult assignment on that end of the floor and makes a huge impact on other stars. Simply put, basically, he's the biggest reason why the Celtics have both a top 10 offense and defense in the league. It's really exciting that the Celtics are where they are, primarily because of him right now. So if you take all of that into consideration and you think about the fact that he on the floor is making his case for it, there are also other players who are making a case for him, because not only did Tatum go down, but they also lost in the offseason Jrue Holiday, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porzingis, who were all key to that championship run in 2024. So the fact that Jaylen's doing what he's doing should be taken more seriously than it is. And Nikola Jokic actually endorsed him for it. He said he doesn't have his partner in crime, and he's still proving that he can lead the team. He's playing at a high level, scoring the ball. He's such a good defensive player too, playing on both sides of the floor. He can play both sides of the court and still score and still be dominant. I mean, talk about game recognizing game. You have Nikola Jokic, who has won MVP 3 times. And he is saying Jaylen Brown should be seriously considered for MVP. I mean, that should hold a lot of weight. And obviously, it's easy to say that me being a Celtics fan, I'm biased, but Jaylen has always kind of been the guy who hasn't always gotten the recognition because of Jayson Tatum also being there. And not that Tatum doesn't deserve it, because he also definitely does, but Jaylen definitely deserves more credit than he gets. And yes, on the defensive side of the ball, in the past, Jaylen's been an issue, committing lots of turnovers. We just haven't seen as much of that from him this season. He has really cleaned things up defensively, and that definitely helps a lot with where the Celtics team is at. Beyond his individual case, the MVP race also feels more open than usual because of injuries to other candidates. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could miss more games because of an abdominal injury, and the Thunder have drifted back toward the rest of the field after a hot start this year. And if Jokic misses more than one game down the stretch, he will not be eligible to win the award based on the league's 65-game threshold. And Victor Wembanyama is close to that mark too. So even if SGA, Jokic, and others do reach the minimum number, Brown will likely still appear on some MVP ballots because he does deserve consideration for carrying the Celtics through a difficult stretch and delivering some of the best performances of his career. I don't ultimately think he'll end up winning it because I do think the voters will see the names on there and they'll end up going with somebody else. But I truly believe that when you look at the word valuable, you do have to weigh that for what it is. And with where Jaylen Brown is right now, this Celtics team, I can confidently say, would not be where they are without him. And to me, that's what the word valuable truly does mean. And he made his case even more at the All-Star game this season. So this was the first time in his 10-year NBA career that he was elected to start in the All-Star game. Obviously, this year's event was a mini tournament, so there were ultimately 3 starting lineups, but then it didn't stop him from being one of the most brightly shining stars in the tournament on Sunday night. So this is where you can say, okay, it's time for the league to actually take notice that he's one of the best players in the league this season. And we as Celtics fans have seen this on display for a while, but now people are finally across the league starting to see what he's capable of, primarily because of Tatum being hurt. So the shift has focused in terms of the Celtics. He truly took command in the All-Star game of a team that featured LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and many other really good players. In his team's first game, Jaylen put on a show. He led the USA Stripes team to victory with 11 points and 3 rebounds on 5 for 9 shooting. So if that alone doesn't convince you of his MVP candidacy, then I don't know what will. He looked like one of the most engaged players on the court, taking the game seriously on both ends, while some of the greatest players in the history of the league deferred to him on offense. I mean, that's really telling when you list the names that I just mentioned, and Jaylen was the one leading them on offense. That should really mean a lot. He's truly a superstar on every level. He was overshadowed by Kawhi in the Stripes' second game because Kawhi did go nuclear and ended up stealing the show with 31 points in the 12-minute game. And then in the final game of the tournament, the Stripes team hit a wall and the veteran-laden squad crumbled in their third game in a row without an extended break. So they ultimately just got pretty fatigued, and that ended up showing. But even with that, it felt like this was a bit of a coming out party for Jaylen nationally because he was totally in the spotlight and ended up rising to the occasion instead of folding. So other stars like LeBron, KD, and others are fading, while international stars like Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic don't appear eager to grab this spotlight. So there was kind of a changing of the guard feel to the event, if you will, because Anthony Edwards took home MVP while players like Victor Wembanyama, Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, and others helped set the tone. And make no mistake, Jaylen Brown was a big part of that. So while people thought that he was a secondary star, that's no longer the case. Now he's a main attraction. So it will be interesting to see what does happen when Tatum comes back and how this dynamic changes going forward. Because while Jaylen is used to being the guy now this season without Tatum, when he comes back and he's used to there being this dynamic duo of Tatum and Brown, how is Jaylen going to adapt to that? Is he going to fill in a different role because they need to slot Tatum back into his natural role with this team? Or is Jaylen going to continue to lead in the way that he is, and Tatum's going to end up taking a back seat? That's going to be interesting. And that was what Tatum was alluding to a little bit a couple weeks ago when he mentioned how he doesn't know if he should come back this season because he doesn't want to necessarily throw off the chemistry that this team has going for them right now. So because of all of that, Tatum is considering maybe waiting a little bit to come back and maybe just doing it next year. He still hasn't given an answer on that, but it's good to see that Jaylen Brown is finally getting respect on the national scale, because that was so overdue and people weren't really always necessarily giving him the credit that he deserves there. But I am really interested in seeing that storyline of Tatum coming back and how those two work well again together. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But coming up, I'm going to be talking about Derrick White and other players who have made a difference on the Celtics team this season. But don't forget that Boston Balling is available on any podcast platform. Make sure you subscribe, like, follow, you name it, and make sure you keep up with the content Monday through Thursday, as I am here talking all things Boston sports. You can also follow me on social media at Gabby Maljanian on Twitter, at Gabby_Maljanian10 on Instagram, and you can follow the show on Twitter at Boston Balling. Locked On Red Sox, my other show, is also on Twitter at LO_Red Sox. Make sure that you are keeping up with those if you want to hear all of my Boston sports talk, and especially now with how exciting things are for the Celtics. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and continue to consume the episodes. I will have more exciting guests along the way coming on, so you can look forward to that as well. So make sure that you're checking it out on any podcast platform. The Boston Celtics have certainly surprised people. The Boston Celtics have certainly surprised people in a good way this year. A lot of people did not expect them to be where they are at now, second in the Eastern Conference, ready to make a run. And to me, there's something to be said for being a team that is without your star player and still being able to be the second best team in the Eastern Conference. It shows that the chemistry is really strong. Players are stepping up into roles they may not have always stepped into before. And everybody has that mentality of being bought in and wanting to win and believing in this team. And that's something that Joe Mazzulla has been able to instill in these players, is that winning mentality of saying, we may be without Jayson Tatum, but let's not let people doubt us. Let's go out there and prove the doubters wrong and say, we are still very much here. And it doesn't matter that we lost Jayson Tatum. We are playing for something a little bit extra now because he went down. So that gives us extra motivation. And shout out to Joe Mazzulla for the way that he's been coaching this team this year and the way that they've been able to excel at the highest level, despite the fact that Tatum is not here. And one player who I definitely wanted to shout out is Derrick White. I mean, he's just been such a leader for this team, both on and off the court. He's a true role model for basketball. And the way that he navigates things, both on and off the court, is truly admirable for this Celtics team. And I really like Derrick White and the ability that he has to be able to just be a strong playmaker and make things happen, elevate the guys around him. And he's just a big part of this team. And I'm so glad that the Celtics have decided over these years that he's been in Boston to not trade him, because I just think he's an integral part of this team and what it does. And if they were without Derrick White, I truly think the chemistry would go out the window, and even little things that Derrick White does. So, for example, on his podcast recently, he talked about the fact that his new teammate, Nikola Vucevic, jokingly offered him $5 million for his number 9 jersey. And in response, Derrick White said he'd never part ways with the number to honor Celtics fans who have bought his jersey. He said, 9 is my favorite number. When I see my people wear number 9 in like the garden and it's like a Nike jersey, then I'm like, I know that's mine. So there's something special about that. There's something kind of special about looking up and seeing all of that. My fans know me as number 9. If there was a special reason he, meaning Vucevic, wanted to be number 9, maybe I would consider it, but I kind of want to stay 9. So that in itself is a cool story to tell, because it shows that he genuinely cares about the passion of the fans, and he cares about the people who are there cheering for him. And you can't always say that about every player. He appreciates the people who look up to him, and he doesn't want to do those fans a disservice by switching numbers and then they have his number 9 jersey. I mean, that means a lot to him, and that's why Derrick White is so valuable and special to the city of Boston, because the way that he takes pride in playing in Boston and the way that he actually shows extra care for the fan base is admirable and something that I really like about him. So Is he a Celtic for life? That's something I'm really hoping, because he played a key role in helping the Celtics hang banner 18, and he's widely considered a part of the franchise's big three at this point alongside Tatum and Brown. While it's customary for even long-tenured players to be moved in the NBA, the Celtics obviously value Derrick White to the point where they view him as an untouchable piece. Per multiple insiders, the Celtics shot down several offers for Derrick White last offseason when they made wholesome changes to the roster by getting rid of key core pieces like Horford, Holiday, Porzingis, and Luke Cornett. And obviously, Al Horford being here is something I would love right now, but the Celtics kind of made all of these changes to form a new identity for this team, shave down salary, and this is where they're at now. And when teams knew that the Celtics were making players available, there were teams that approached them about the availability of Derrick White, and the Celtics seemed adamant that they didn't want to move him. And now looking back on it, it looks like the absolute right decision that they didn't, with how important he's been to this team. So somebody was asking Celtics front office executive Mike Zarin last June about the team, and he said those two guys, Brown and White, are really, really great NBA players, and there hasn't been anything close to serious about trading them. I'm not sure where all this reporting came from, but those guys are key parts of our team, and we're lucky to have them here. So there hasn't really been a consideration on the Celtics end of moving Derrick White, and it seems to not really matter the type of package that they were getting offered. They were just committed to keeping him around, and I love that. I think Derrick White definitely is a key asset to this team and somebody who should hopefully spend the rest of his career here. Not to mention that he does make a strong case for Defensive Player of the Year too, because that's another asset of his game that he's brought to the table this year that has truly been a standout and has been a game changer for the Celtics. He ranks 7th in the league in defensive win shares and 5th in individual defensive rating, with opponents scoring only 108.6 points per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. When he's off the floor, the Celtics have given up 116.9 points, which is 8.3 more than when he's on the floor. Also, the Celtics right now rank 9th in the league in defensive rating, in large part thanks to White, who has picked up a huge slack following the departures of Holiday and Porzingis. Some felt that White, who's averaging a career-high 17.2 points and 5.6 assists, had a legitimate case to be named a first-time All-Star this season. He feels that a dip in his efficiency, he has shot a career low 39% from the field, is what ended up hurting his chances. He said on his podcast, obviously this year has been kind of crazy and not shooting the way that I wanted to. I feel like I've done a pretty good job of keeping a positive mindset and doing other things to help the team win. And if I shot it the way I know I'm capable of, I probably would be an all-star. So he admitted that his offense hasn't been up to par this season. His defense alone, you can make an argument for him being an all-star, but when you think about Derrick White and the difference overall that he has made to this Celtics team, his defense is certainly a story, and his off the court presence and what he brings to this Celtics team to just constantly make them better feels like, to me, a guy who's a keeper. And I think the Celtics know that, and they are not interested in entertaining any kind of trade possibilities for Derrick White at this point. And he just keeps continuing to reiterate through his play and his off the field loyalty to his team and leadership style is just so important, and to me too important to the fact where he should be moved. So I really like Derrick White. Big shout out to him and the way that he's been able to contribute to the Celtics team and continue to make it better. A lot of guys have contributed to the puzzle this year, and because it's the All-Star break now is when I can confidently sit here and say, yeah, there is no part of me that thought the Celtics would be where they are at the All-Star break at this point. And while I talk about players and who makes an impact, I can't be done with this episode without giving credit to Chris Paul and congratulating him on his retirement. I mean, such a great decorative career for him. It's really too bad that he never won a championship. I was rooting for him to win one. I thought that Suns team, when they went against the Bucks in the finals that year, was going to win it. But shout out to Chris Paul. I mean, he's had such a great career, and he's the type of player that you can look up to if you're a younger player striving to be among the best of all time. Chris Paul certainly is one of the best point guards we'll ever see. Even though he doesn't have the championships to back it up, he certainly does have the other underlying stats to back it up. So big shout out to him. Side note there, I hope he enjoys retirement. He deserves it. He deserves to spend time with his family and do other things that make him happy. I'm sure he'll miss playing basketball, but I can't emphasize enough how happy I am for him. Such a well-deserved retirement. But when we think about the Celtics and how there are players like Tatum and Brown who could finish their career and be among the best of all time, we also have to give credit to the guys who have helped Jaylen Brown along the way this season to put this Celtics team in the position that it's been in. Obviously, I mentioned Derrick White, what a season he has had. And Derrick White also recognizes the human aspect of basketball. I mean, he talked about the human aspect of losing the guys they parted ways with at the trade deadline, like Anthony Simons and Xavier Tillman and Chris Boucher and Josh Minott. Those are all the players that the Celtics moved on from at the trade deadline. And while Derrick White understands that it's a business, he also relates to the human side of, look, like those guys were family to us, and it's really hard to see them go. And that's when you really start to understand that these athletes are people first. And I think Derrick White is an athlete who does a great job of really showcasing the fact that, yes, he's a professional athlete, but he is a human being first. And that's what I really respect about him. So Derrick White is definitely a big factor in all of this, but Peyton Pritchard, to me, has taken big strides this year. He was starting a lot of these games with Anthony Simons coming off the bench, and then when they traded Anthony Simons, they shifted Peyton Pritchard back to the bench, a guy who naturally has performed really well as that Celtics sixth man, but now with the fact that they feel like Jayson Tatum might be coming back, coming off the bench is more the role of where Peyton Pritchard's going to be moving forward. So the Celtics have said as of late, let's have him play off the bench now because it makes sense for us to put him in that spot since that's likely what he'll be doing moving forward. And the transition he made seamlessly from coming off the bench to then starting to then going back to the bench, I can't emphasize that enough. That's a big storyline for the Celtics team right now, is the fact that he's been able to make that transition so seamlessly, and whatever role the Celtics team puts him in, he does it, and he does it with pride, and he is there because he wants to elevate his team and make it better. And I'm so proud of Peyton Pritchard and where he's come. I mean, from a guy who played with a lot of confidence in college at Oregon to then being drafted by the Celtics, working his way up, struggling in the early going of his career, but being able to get to the point now where he's an integral piece of this team. It's so great to see him step up and perform in the big moments. So I have to give a big shout out to Peyton Pritchard. I also have to give a big shout out to the big men. I mean, Neemias Queta and Luka Garza both have really done their job effectively. And I'm glad that the Celtics added Vucevic to add to that big man rotation, a guy who provides that depth and a guy who is an experienced veteran who they can play along with Queta and Garza to feel like they have the center position covered. And Garza's another one who definitely needed to develop some confidence. And I have seen over the course of this season that that confidence has been able to continue to develop even more throughout the course of the campaign. So he's another player that I have enjoyed watching this year, and the confidence level that he's developed has been something worth noting. And speaking of confidence, Jordan Walsh is another player to me who has been able to develop a lot of confidence to be able to turn into a guy that is worth paying attention to and a guy that's worth being excited about. Because obviously if a player is early on in their young career and they have a really good season, it's hard to know if that's the player they are or if they're going to go back into struggling and if they were just playing at a high level temporarily. But Jordan Walsh to me is somebody who plays with a level of confidence that is going to allow him to succeed. He's not afraid to be aggressive on the court. He's not afraid to draw fouls, and he knows where to be at the right times. And when you have a guy like him who plays with that firepower, that energy, that's the type of player who can be successful. So I'm really excited to see Jordan Walsh's role continue to increase over time with the Celtics team. And even Baylor Scheierman, a guy who doesn't get an insane amount of playing time, but his playing time has increased over time. He's another guy who I have seen develop a lot of confidence over time. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him and hopefully an increased role from him throughout the course of the rest of the season into next year, etc. I'm just really excited to see how things go for him. So when you look at the Celtics team and the theme of what the Celtics team is this year, you can't help but feel excited about the future and excited about where they're at right now, because not only are they true contenders for a title this season, which is really exciting, especially if Tatum comes back to help put them over the top. But they also have young players who have seriously continued to develop that confidence that you need to succeed at the highest level. And if I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm really excited about that. And based on where they finish this year, say they get to the finals, if they come up short, I'm still keeping this same team as much as possible intact, because this is a team that has developed a lot of really strong chemistry. And when you have a group of young players who are bought into what you're doing, guys who just want to go out there and give 110% every single day, that's not something that's going to fail you. That's something that, if anything, is going to be able to elevate your team, at least from an energy perspective, because there have been games where the Celtics starters have struggled, and these young guys come off the bench and provide a spark that the Celtics really needed. So because of all that, it's really great to be able to have guys like that around, guys who are going to be able to come off your bench and be able to provide that spark that your team needs. So overall, I'm really happy about where the Celtics team is at right now. I'm excited about the possibility of Jayson Tatum coming back this season. Rumor has it in about a month or so, they did flex the Celtics game on March 1st to an 8 p.m. game. It was supposed to be earlier than that, but they flexed it to 8 p.m. and it's going to be a nationally televised game. My guess is that they think that might be when Tatum makes his return. So if that happens, that would be beyond exciting and unfortunate for the rest of the league, because I don't think anybody wants to deal with what the Celtics could be when Tatum comes back. But you never know. I mean, like I talked about before, chemistry has been established. So are they going to struggle and hit a bump in the road when Tatum comes back, because Mazzulla is going to have to change up the way guys are utilized? So only time will tell with that. But thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Make sure you continue to like, follow, subscribe, share it with friends and family. Let's go Celtics. Let's go Boston sports. And I'll catch you next time.